Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker and today we're taking a look at the top 8 deck lists for PPG Columbus, or PPG Galaxy Con, should I say. This event took place just the other day, December the 2nd. There were 45 players and 6 rounds of Swiss, so great to be looking at some more top 8 deck lists. And there should be another video that comes out not too long after this one, because there was also a PAX event over the weekend, so expect to see that over the weekend.
Hey everyone, listen!
Not now, Crystal Ball. But yeah, we're going to take a look through all these deck lists. But first, let's look at the total breakdown of all the decks that were represented in this tournament.
How about now?
Not now, Crystal Ball. So we had 46 players, as I said, and it is an amethyst world. It is a bouncy world, and we are all simply living in it. A huge representation from Amethyst Ruby. The second most was Ruby Sapphire, only one of which transferred into the top 8. We have 6 Amber Amethyst lists, 6 Amber Steel, 3 Amethyst Emerald, which is pretty cool, 2 Amber Sapphire, and then 1 Emerald Sapphire, 1 Emerald Steel, and 1 Sapphire Steel. So a fair amount of representation, but obviously overwhelmingly taken over by Ruby Amethyst, and just Amethyst in general, just having, I think, the highest representation overall. So yeah, it is a bouncy meta, and we are just living in it.
Pay attention to me!
What?
Yes, my people must know of this. I got a new hat!
That is a pretty cool hat. Let's take a look at the top 8 deck lists. So jumping straight into our first place list, we have Caitlin, who was piloting Amber Amethyst Aggro. There's a lot of aggro in this top 8. So we've got 3 copies of the Ballroom Sensation Cinderella, who in this deck is literally just here for a turn 2 Friends on the Other Side, or even a turn 2 free Be Our Guest, or it's just ink. But still a great include, just because like that early free Be Our Guest or Friends on the Other Side is going to be really strong. 4 copies of Making a Wish Lilo, and 4 copies of Biding Her Time Maleficent, both 1 cost, uninkable, 1/1 stat lines with 2 lore. Just playing into the aggro style that we want to do here. We want to put these down turn 1, if not Cinderella, and we want to start aggressively questing and being able to protect these guys, not only with our Simba that we have, the bodyguard at a 4 count, but we also have 4 copies of the Madam Mim who can bounce them back to our hand and keep them safe. So we're just doing all the aggro things. We've got 4 copies of Pascal in here as well, which can be another card that we can bounce with our copies of Snake, or our 4 copies of Madam Mim Fox, and just having the evasive, and if you've got a wide board, can just cheat you some extra lore, so that's great. We've also got Lefou back in business, 2 cost, inkable, 1/2 stat line, quest for 2. The loyal ability is yet to come in. I'm confident one day that Lefou's loyal ability will mean something in a deck list, but this is not that day. But yeah, he's just here for another aggressive early quester, so we'd love to see it. We've also got Pinocchio, the 2 cost uninkable, 1/1 stat line, quest for 3 as another aggressive quester. And again, these are all cards that can go along. The Lefou and the Pinocchio can go alongside being protected by our Simba, or just bounce back and protected with our Snake and our Fox. And of course, we've got the 4 copies of Arthur here, Wizard's Apprentice, one of the most powerful cards in the game. Whenever he quests, you may return another character of yours to your hand to gain 2 lore. So even if you've got Pinocchio down already, then you quest for Pinocchio for 3, and then you quest with Arthur, which is technically 1 in itself, so you've gone up for 4, and then the ability gives you another 2, so that's a lot of lore that Arthur can really aggressively win games. So lovely. We've got 2 copies of Doc, which I really like, 3 cost, inkable, 2/3 stat line, quest for 2, which I think is really generous, and the ability share and share alike. Whenever this character quests, you pay 1 less ink for the next character you play this turn. So do that, put Doc down on turn 3, and then suddenly turn 4, you're able to just pressure a little bit more. You've got a bit more ink to play with, more adaptability to be able to maybe play one of your actions and a couple of characters and do some bouncing, and yeah, just longevity. This is going to matter. We talked about Arthur and Fox. Obviously got 4 copies of Merlin here, a menace on the meta. That is like just a menace on the meta. Goat is I saw a post by Pavel, the creator of Pixelborn, the other day saying, changed my mind, GOAT is creating the most negative player experience. And I am inclined to agree. What are your thoughts on Goat? Does he need to be stopped, or is he fine? 3 copies of the Merlin Rabbit, 4 cost, uninkable, 2/3 stat line, draws a card when entering and exiting, leaving play, either or. I think 3 copies is just fine. I really like the 4 Befuddle. I think you're going to start to see these come up a lot more just because aggro is becoming really popular. It really helps to slow down bounce mechanic decks, Ruby Amethyst stuff in general. Yeah, I think Befuddle, you're going to suddenly start to see maxed out counts in a lot of deck lists. And of course, 4 copies of Be Our Guest and Friends on the other side. So yeah, deck looks consistent. Looks like it's just going to win the game before your opponent even gets a chance to get to that 7, 8, 9, 10 ink point where they're able to constantly remove. Because that's the position that you put the control players in, is just you force them to, because you will take the lead 9 times out of 10, and then you get to a point where you're so close to game, you just force them to have removal every turn. And even if they do, sometimes like just being able to keep Arthur down for a turn, or just a Merlin Goat at the right time along with Snake or Fox, just wins you the game. So yeah, fantastic list, and congratulations to Caitlin. Next up in second place, we have our Ruby Amethyst Control, and I will look at all the Ruby Amethyst Control decks in a row. I just think it makes more sense to look at them that way. But yeah, so we have Ruby Amethyst Bounce Control. I've said this before. I don't call a deck Bounce, although I haven't here. It should be there though. That's just a mistake. But I don't call a deck Bounce if it's just running Snake, Fox, and Rabbit, because I think just any Amethyst deck runs those. I think you need to be playing at least Arthur. And even Goat, just Goat is kind of a standard in that package as well, but I want to see at least an Arthur to really call you Bounce, purely because I want to differentiate a little bit, because I just think every Amethyst deck will run Snake, Rabbit, Fox, and potentially even Goat. So yeah, this is a Bounce archetype. We do see the Arthur, although I forgot to put it in the title name there, my apologies. But yeah, a Bounce version. We've got 4 copies of Pascal, nice early Bounce. It's our only 1 drop, which is something that I would like to see more of, but they came second, so you've got to listen to the data. 4 copies of, as we've said, the basics, the Snake, the Fox, the Goat. We see a 4 counter Rabbit, 4 Maleficent in this particular deck, which I still think is good. I'm down to 3 myself, but I still think it's a fine include. Sometimes you're more willing to ink it because you're getting value off of your Rabbit, and potentially a lot of value off of it, so it's perfectly fine to ink. But if you don't hit the Rabbit and you need to draw cards, it's an extra way to help you dig. 4 copies of Lefou here. That's the build that we've gone strong here. The Lefou being able to bounce things back with Arthur, and then put down Lefou to immediately re-ready him if we can't bounce him back to our hand with something else. So yeah, this Lefou engine makes his deck even more aggressive. 4 copies of Maui. There are some decks in this that are running only 3, which I actually do now think is fine because we have 4 copies of Fox, but I still don't disagree with 4. Yzma at 4 count I think is perfectly fine. She's really strong, really diverse, helps to take out an opposing threat, or just to bounce back, well, not bounce back, but bounce back to the deck your Goat, so you're getting more value off of that, your Rabbit, your Maleficent, like anything really, and just giving you more card control, or just letting you get the come out of play effects of Goat and things like that. So yeah, really like Yzma. We're all in on the Lady Tremaine. I see no Dragon's Fire here, which I did say the other day. I don't like the cut of Dragon's Fire because Tremaine is a fantastic card, and I don't disagree with a 4 count of it. It's brilliant, but I still think that you're seeing people are learning how to play around it. You're seeing more 1-drops. You don't always get that assured removal. So I still like a count of Dragon's Fire to be able to remove that threat that really needs to go. I know we've got Maleficent to be prepared here, but sometimes that's too late. But I don't disagree with the 4 count of Lady Tremaine. I just don't like losing Dragon's Fire completely. But in this build with Lefou, maybe it's just a consistency thing. But still, I really like the 4 Tremaine. I like the 2 count of Elsa. 1 or 2 I think is a fine count. Really strong, always was, and the ability to just keep reusing her is just kind of broken in the right board state. 4 copies of Maleficent, which I think is fine. I'm down to 3, and I think a few other deck lists that we're going to look at are down to 3, but 4 is still fine. 4 Friends on the Other Side, 4 Be Prepared, and 3 of the other card that I think is one of the menaces on the meta. I know this one's a bit more debated. I've seen a couple of top players say that they don't like Spellbook, and fair enough. I still think Spellbook is really, really strong. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that this list did well, so congratulations to Dusty. Next up in top 4, another Ruby Amethyst player, but this is undoubtedly Ruby Amethyst Villains. We see, of course it's going to be the first thing I mentioned, we see a 2 count of the most diabolical scheme. What did I say? What did I say when I reviewed this? I guarantee within a year of it coming out, It might take the year, it might be quicker. It will be in a top 8 list for a tournament. Just saying. What did I say? Love to see it. Really interesting decisions here, which I like. I hadn't thought of. Well, I hadn't given much respect to. Okay, let's just straight away look at the Lady Tremaine. Because I did think about this when I first, when we learned that the Floodborn one is really good, and I was like, oh, well, we have a baby one in this colour, and it denies lore, and we can bounce it and keep denying lore, potentially, as long as they've got more lore than us. It's a bit more situational than Aladdin, but still. But I just feel it's uninkable. I'm not sure if it's worth it, but Tyler says yes, it is, and I don't hate it at all. Being able to get the play Lady Tremaine on turn 4 to get the ability and immediately be questing or challenging. Plus, again, it's just another target for our most diabolical scheme, which I do think is really great now in this meta, because being able to remove that early Ariel, that early Arthur, who's been re-readied with Lefou, you can really shut things down. And I joke, but in all seriousness, I did say that when I reviewed the most diabolical scheme. I think it will slip into lists as an answer to the meta, and just the fact that it's important to be able to take out certain characters easier and from an earlier point in the game, and you can sing this with your Maleficent or your Rabbit or with your Maleficent or your Madam Mim Fox, or obviously any of your bigger villains like Yzma, Lady Tremaine, Floodborn, and Maleficent. Obviously, those aren't your although you could still do that. You have a lot of villain targets to be able to get this off, and you could sing it, and yeah, I can absolutely see why this put in work. So you really like that, and I like the 2 count of the Lady Tremaine, the 2 cost version. We also do see 2 copies of Pinocchio, Talkative Puppet, who I've seen crop up a little bit, and I do really like it, honestly, especially in a heavy aggro meta, which is what it kind of seems to be at the moment, because it's just so strong if you go first to be able to get down one of your 1-drops, in which we're running 5 in this list for Olaf 1 mini, and then if they put down a Maleficent or a Lilo, Pinocchio just immediately answers that, and you really do start to annoy them and send the shift of the game. The balance of the game goes much more in your favour if you can just shut down these things early. Our uninkable count is 17, so that's not bad. That's not bad at all. We see no Dragon's Fires, no Elsas. So yeah, I do really like this list. We also see 2 copies of the evasive Minnie Mouse later on the list. 3 cost inkable, 1/3 stat line, and quest for 2. So some more early pressure. And we see the 4 copies of Teeth and Ambition, which is obviously goes really well with Olaf and Minnie. Plus, it can be fine to just use it on your Pinocchio, because generally you put down the Pinocchio, you've gained the benefit that you wanted to by exerting an opposing character. So I think that's probably also a fine target to sing Teeth and Ambitions on turn 3 and even put the damage on itself. So yeah, really like it, and obviously the rest of these things look pretty standard to Ruby Amethyst. So yeah, really like this Ruby Amethyst Villains version, and obviously hyped to see the most diabolical scheme doing well. So yeah, congratulations to Tyler. Next up in top 4, we have Trenton. This list looks very much the same. We do see the 2 count of Elsa in here. Still no Dragon's Fire. We do see the 2 count of Queen of Hearts in here, the Rush version, 2 cost inkable, 2/2 stat line, who I really like as just an answer to opposing boards, especially if you don't get that 1-drop, which we have good odds of doing. We've got 4 copies of Pascal and 2 copies of Minnie. But yeah, it's nice to have a quick response play to be able to take out Cinderellas and aggro cards like Lilo and Maleficent. So yeah, I do like Queen of Hearts. And we see 4 copies of Fidget in here, which I kind of love. I've said a few times, I think he is one of the best answers to evasive. If you want to put something in a Ruby deck, which can counter evasives, I think Fidget is the play, just because he's the lower cost inkable that hits for 3, so he'll immediately deal with the Surfer Mini that was in the previous list that has 1/3 stat line. By then they've probably already got a quest off with her for you to be able to challenge into it, but at least it is removing the threat straight away. But again, sometimes it's not just for removing opposing evasive. Sometimes if they don't have evasive stuff themselves, he's just an annoying threat that's going to sit there and just keep questing, only for 1, but he might sometimes demand an answer. So I don't know if it will stick, but I really like seeing Fidget here. It's such a shame he's not a villain, because that would, I know we're not playing Diabolical Scheme in this, but it's just kind of a shame. But everything else looks standard. 4 counts of Maleficent, 3 Lady Tremaine. We don't see the baby version in here. We do see 2 copies of the Lefou, only 2 copies of Arthur, so we're not all in on that, but we do see the 3 Sorcerer's Spellbook. So another solid looking list, so congratulations to them. And we move to our final Ruby Amethyst list, which I have gone to into the top 8 now. Like I said, we just look at all of them at the same time. Makes the most sense. We have Matthew, whose list looks pretty... This is nearly identical to the villain version that we looked at a minute ago that was running Diabolical Scheme. The only difference is it's not running the 2 Diabolical Scheme. It's also playing an extra version of the Floodborn Tremaine. It's also running a extra version of the Minnie Mouse, the evasive one. And there is probably another count different there, but I'm not seeing it off the top of my head. But mostly it looks pretty much the same as the Ruby Amethyst Villains version that we looked at. They opted not to play the most Diabolical Scheme. Never mind. But yeah, list again looks really good. And yeah, I'm liking Pinocchio in these lists a lot. Yeah, I can see why that's putting in work. So yeah, congratulations to Matthew. Away from Ruby Amethyst and into our Emerald Amethyst, we have Bounce Aggro. This colour combination I always used to call Lockout because it ran things like Jasper and Multiple Genies and John Silver, Mother Gothel, all things that basically just lock your opponent out of playing the game the way they want to play it. Whereas this deck's gone in a completely different direction, and rightfully so, due to our bounce mechanics. We're all in on Arthur and Snake and the Biding Her Time Maleficent and the Sorceress Maleficent and the Goat. Only 2 copies of Rabbit and Fox. 3 copies of Pinocchio, the one that quests for 3. We've got 4 copies of Enchantress here, the cost 2, who I really like, and quests for 2 as well, and gets a +2 to strength when being challenged, so nice early pressure. Also, Flynn Rider is a perfectly good 2-drop as well to put on quest pressure and annoy the opponent by making them discard cards from their hand. 2 copies of the Cheshire Cat, the 3-cost version that quests for 2. I really like the 4 Donald Duck. I'm a big Donald Duck believer. I really like Donald. 4 copies of Kuzco. Shout out to Y Breezy. I know that'll make my man happy. Still 1 copy of Genie on the Job, which is something else that we can bounce and just keep reusing his bounce ability for the opponent. So I really like it. 4 copies of Befuddle, I think, will just be more staple as this format goes on. And then 4 friends on the other side and only 2 copies of the Sorcerer's Spellbook. So Emerald Amethyst able to just play a different game now and just be far more aggressive due to these just such powerful Amethyst cards. So yeah, congratulations to Logan. Next up, we've got Steel Amber Latern Rock Songs. This was piloted by Brandon. We have a 4 count of the Ballroom Sensation Cinderella. We see no Stout-Hearted in this list, but this Ballroom Sensation will be a great target to sing Let the Storm Rage On and Strength of a Raging Fire, nice and cheaply, and 1 copy of World's Greatest Criminal Mind, or just act as ink. We've obviously got the 4/4 count of Stitch, New Dog, and Rockstar Stitch, making this a rock song variant. We see the 4/4 Queen line. She hasn't popped up as much as I thought she would, but I still stand by this Floodborn Queen. So powerful, being able to shift turn 2 and immediately open up, just such a powerful card, and being able to sing Whole New World and Grab Your Swords as soon as you're ready to, between turns 2 and 5. So yeah, really strong. 4 copies of Simba Bodyguard to protect us. We've got 4 copies of Spectacular Singer Ariel to search for those multiple songs. 3 copies of Benja, which I think is a great call. Again, there was a lot of Ruby Sapphire, a lot of Spellbook going around, so I bet Benja put in a shift. I really like the 3 copies of Baby Tink, who had started to fall off, but I don't... Big Tink fell off real strong at the beginning of the format, at least in testing, because I think everyone was just like, oh, well, resist just makes her not great. And there is some resist, but she's still brilliant. But most of this I've seen have, including my own, cut the Baby Tink. But I really like bringing her back because, again, the amount of aggro in format and the bounce decks that just want to keep re-readying and just create a perfect circle loop, being able to play down Tink turn 4, get that spread and challenge is just really strong. So yeah, I really like that. Only 3 copies of Rapunzel, which I think is fine in this meta. 3 copies of the Beast Tragic Hero, who is my favourite card from Rise of the Floodborn, at least from a meta perspective. So strong, just being able to double draw at the start of your turn, and go up to 7 strength, should I say. So really like that. And we've talked about everything else in the list. Only 2 copies of the Latern here. But yeah, this looks really strong. Steel Amber Songs is still a powerful deck to contend with. So congratulations to Brandon. And last but not least, our lone Ruby Sapphire Pawp Control was represented by 10 players, but only one of them made it all the way. Hopefully that tells you something. I do think this is a strong deck. I don't think it's as great as everyone thought it was when it first came to light. I still think it's strong. I still think you'll see it in top 8. I think it loses hard to Ruby Amethyst, and even aggro to Ruby Amethyst aggro as well. So and Amber Amethyst aggro. So yeah, it's strong. I don't think it's something that you're going to regularly see filling most of the top 8 spaces in lists. But nonetheless, 4 copies of Grand Martala pairs really well with the 4 copies of Tefan Ambitions to help us ramp and remove threats. 2 copies of Noi, who is a 2-cost inkable with a 1/2 stat line, quest for 2. And the hide and seek ability. While you have an item in play, which hopefully is a lot of the time, 4 copies of Porpsicle, 4 copies of Shield of Virtue, and 4 copies of Fishbone Quill. When you have an item in play, this character gains resist 1 and ward. So reducing damage done to him by 1 and can't be targeted. So that does make Noi quite annoying to deal with. So I can see why that put in work. We've got 4 copies of Judy Hops. I can imagine more than anything this was more for removing opposing items, getting rid of those spell books, those lanterns, the opposing Porpsicles and Fishbone Quills to hopefully slow your opponent down in the mirror match. So yeah, I like seeing Judy Hops here, and it's inkable, so I like it. Flavisham, obviously top man. We love a bit of Flavisham. 4 copies of Nick Wild so we can recycle those Porps. 3 copies of Maui, I think is just fine. 3 copies of Lady Tremaine. 3 copies of Hades. I think those are good counts and ungreedy counts in this deck. Really like that. 4 copies of Tamatoa for high quest pressure, being able to recycle those items quite aggressively, and just puts a lot of pressure on the board. 3 copies of Maleficent for instant removal. We've talked about Tefan Ambitions. 4 Let It Go for some more removal. 4 Be Prepared for some board clear. And we've talked about the items. So yeah, Ruby Sapphire, a good deck. You will see it again in top 8. I think it loses hard to Ruby Amethyst, or I think it just loses hard to Amethyst in general. So yeah, I think you'll see it again. I don't think it's going to stay as popular. But a lot of fun, and it's really great to see Flavisham putting in a shift in the meta. So yeah, congratulations to Matthew. And that's it for our top 8 deck list from PPG Galaxy Con. I forgot to say at the beginning, all my information today comes from the PPG event management website, which will be linked down below. Also linked down below will be all of these deck lists for you to copy and go ahead and try out yourself. Let me know down in the comments which is your favourite. Is there a particular surprise, something that you didn't expect to make top 8? Is there something that you did expect to top 8 and didn't? Let me know all about it down in the comments.
Yes, Ruby Amethyst is good. Who would have funked it? Now for the best part of the show, the Crystal Mailbag. Cue my intro. You will do me an intro. First up, we've got Chucky Davis, who says a lot of things about card games, but most importantly offers me their most warmest of regards and thanking me for solid content, to which I take sole credit and offer you my most humble appreciations. Bow before your king. Next, we have Dylan, who says, Crystal Ball, shout out. Well, if you insist, Dylan. Well, you know you make me want to shout. Look, my hands jumping. Look, my heart's pumping. Throw my head back. Come on now. Don't forget to say you will. Yeah, don't forget to shout. Yeah. I'm afraid that's all I can do, or the copyright will get us. But hopefully that fulfilled your desires, Dylan. Fear the copyright. Next up, we have Jake Herbert, who says, Crystal Ball should do a series on overrated cards. I agree, Jake. Let's do it right now. The most overrated card is Coconut Basket. This, no good, worthless, pathetic little collision of wicker is the most overrated card that Lorcana has, or ever will have. And you may be thinking, but it hardly even sees play. And you would be right, but rest assured, if only one person in all the realms is playing Coconut Basket, it is one person too many. And this was my series on overrated cards. Well, that's it for now. See you next time for some more Crystal Mailbag.
And that's it from me.
Excuse me.
And that's it from us. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you soon.